akong vice mayor won. All the councilmen, majority won. Ako ray na discuss siya. I call myself Alcansi.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are here live at the mayor's office with no less than our beloved mayor, Mayor Mike Rama. Hi, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Jiggy, and good evening to all the televiewers.
Dagang salamat, sir. I know you're very busy. I know there's a fire in Mabolo that you had to run to and all of that stuff. Plus, there's the campaign and all of that. But in spite of that, you took time off to talk to us here at your beautiful, newly refurbished Cebu Mayor's office. Sir, first and foremost, tell us, sir, when did you get started in politics? Better yet, maybe you can even telescope further and tell us about how the Ramas started in politics, not just here in Cebu, but in the Philippines.
It's going to be a long talk
Okay.
because you talk about 100 years ago.
Okay.
And that is somewhere in 1916,
Okay.
particularly June 16, 1916.
Mm-hmm.
That's when my grandfather, the father of Cebu City Charter,
Mm-hmm.
started his political career
Mm-hmm.
as a
Well, opinion.
councillor. But if you're asking me, as far as how he also got into this
Who's the
whole
first Rama in Cebu?
Don Vicente Rama,
Okay.
the father of my father.
Okay.
And that was 100 years ago.
100 years ago.
Yes,
Okay.
as a councilman. Then, it's not Cebu City in the picture. It was being called Ciudad de Cebu.
Okay.
You could imagine. In 1916, it was already called Ciudad de Cebu. But, of course, it go back, there really was the official bringing the legitimacy under the Republic of the Philippines. And that is making Cebu City. In the year 1936 as a bill, then inaugurated in 1937, February. So that is the whole picture of my grandfather. Started as a councilman, then went to the province to run for 2 terms, how many terms? As congressman or representative then. Then, during his tenure, he became an author of a bill, making Cebu a city
Okay.
and making us, in fact, an independent city.
So
from
this is
the
your
province.
grandfather, sir. Your grandfather.
Grandfather,
Okay.
the father of my father. Then eventually, he was being invited by President Manuel Quezon to run for the Senate. And he was a senator in a Commonwealth. Yeah, Commonwealth time was when we became a city. Then, of course, then after the war, then he became also a continuing senator under the Republic of the Philippines.
So aside from your father's father, your grandfather, who else was a Rama politician before Mayor Mike Rama?
The son, he was keeping up the Bagong Kusog,
Okay.
the 20 years publication of my grandfather,
Okay.
that had even reached Guam and penetrated the whole country in Visayan, English, and Spanish. You know, my uncle, the other son, was in the news running for councillor.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, the one really that brings some prominence was already the governor that started as a councilman, then went to the province, became the vice governor, and later the governor. Then my uncle was a councilman. My father was a councilman. My brother was also a congressman in Agusan del Norte, and a governor and a congressman. Then my cousin Enrique Rama became also vice governor. Napoleon Rama, a famous writer. And then at Free Press. became also a constitutional delegate twice. And that brings also in expanding to my cousins who became barangay captain. Then another cousin of mine, a barangay captain in Talisay. Then a barangay captain, no, a councillor, now my nephew. So bringing all of this.
So
in
you
the
come from a
picture.
long
Yes.
lineage of politicians.
Yes.
From your grandfather, who is the father of Cebu City, all the way to
Yes.
where you are now.
Yes.
How does your lineage inform you, sir, as a politician? When you first became a politician back in the day, how long ago was this? When did Mike Rama start in politics here in Cebu?
Politics,
Yeah,
it is in 1992.
1992.
Civic organization, way back in somewhere 1980s.
Okay.
Because civic, I became president of the Young Lawyers Association of Cebu.
Okay.
Then also president of the voluntary arbitration, or we call it arbitrators. Then I went up also as even president of the Philippine Association of Voluntary Arbitration. Political exercise, 1992.
As a city councillor?
Three-term councillor,
Okay.
president of the Philippine Council of State, 18,000 in the entire country. Then vice mayor, also president of all the vice mayor in the entire country, 1,630 something. And then mayor, 2 terms.
What was the thought process like, sir? Why did you decide to throw your hat in politics?
That's a very good question. At the beginning, you know, my looking beyond, I was a graduate in the elementary, exposed with the side of my mama, who happens to have mga nuns and even, we call it seminarians. I really was thinking of becoming a priest.
Really now?
Yes. My ambition when I graduated valedictorian.
Father Rama.
Yeah. Actually, valedictorian. Then we're among that I really sign in. Voluntarily. Not no pressure whatsoever. But you know, during the summertime after graduation, then my eyes had a sight of a lady. And then I started visiting within the neighborhood. Then I committed lack of foresight of priesthood, even ending to an oversight. And eventually shifted to an educational search and quest because I studied in Veles. Graduated in my high school in USP, University of Smart People, University of Southern Philippines. Then I went to college. I involved myself in the student council. I got elected. But eventually, what was my intention then? Because I look at my uncle, the governor, was a doctor, and he became a lawyer. No, he went into 4 years, and of course he did not get into becoming a lawyer too. So what happened? He was my, I look up to him. I said, I will also become a doctor. But I didn't. I finished 4 years in Veles. But eventually, I went into taking up even masteral, public administration. When I joined a private corporation in Coaco, a British group and company. Then eventually, I said, I have to go to University of San Carlos to finish my masteral in San Carlos. But, in order to enter masteral in San Carlos, then eventually, a group of us who were classmates in college, we must take up law. So that's how I decided I have to become a lawyer.
Okay.
Anyway,
So when was that time when you wanted to become a politician and run for city councillor?
I
Was there like
invited.
pressure from your family because you come
No.
from a long line of politicians? Did your parents or your grandparents tell you, whisper to your ear, Mike, you have to run for public office? What was that moment? Maybe you can take us back to that moment, sir. You finally decided to run for city councilor back in 1992?
It was when I was very much busy in my corporate discipline.
Mhm.
Then eventually a phone call came, and that was my predecessor before,
Mhm.
and invited me. Would you be available for a councillor seat?
Mm.
But remember, I was already very busy with
The corporate world.
corporate world,
Okay.
personal management
Mm.
as a legal personal manager.
Mm.
Third, involvement on, shall I say, on matters about when the Young Lawyers Association as a lawyer. Then came this phone call. It originally was for my cousin, who used to be the barangay captain, but became a councillor, and that is George Rama.
Okay.
So my predecessor called, and he offered to me. And I told him, I thank you very much for that offer, but I need to talk to my family, as I need to talk to the British Group and Company.
So you
eventually-
weren't thinking about politics at that time yet, sir?
No, I
It
do
was.
not-
It never crossed your mind.
No, I don't
In
want-
spite of the fact that you come from a long line of politicians. Wag ito ni Jesús si mga una, sir.
No, the fact alone that I got myself in the Supreme Student.
So you already had an
So
inkling.
that
bro.
the inkling has already been there that I got to be into leading.
Okay.
Number two, and then obviously, as I said, I became president of the Young Lawyer Association of Cebu. That means I would have wanted even to be president of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. If not that I did not make it in the so-called convention. I ended up, because I was a young man.
So how was your first foray into politics, sir? When you were a city councilor, how was that? How did you feel about campaigning for the first time? How did you feel about your public service as a city councilor? How did that feel like the first time you did it back in
Challenge.
1992?
Challenge, because it was one of a kind. There were two Rama running.
Okay.
The other one, and I am the other party.
Okay.
And therefore, he was the incumbent.
Okay.
And any vote of a Rama, at that time there was no automation, will go to him.
Okay.
So it was a challenge for me. How will I make my name?
Okay.
Because kung Rama ray butan adto, pildi mo ko.
Padong gito niyang vote.
Patungto niya because
Okay.
of the equity of the incumbent.
Okay.
So I did my innovation, creativity.
Okay. So what did
and
you do?
First and foremost, I have to emphasize the jingle was very important. And that jingle, I repeated it now.
That's the same jingle.
That starting jingle, dong 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 dong, Mike, Rama.
Okay.
Eyes,
Okay,
baby.
okay.
I have to say Mike, Rama.
Okay.
They have to
So
remember
katulo ang
me.
Mike o sarang Rama.
Duha ka book, Mike,
ah.
Sarang Rama.
Okay.
It's a needed thing for recall and repetition.
So how did you do, sir, in your first a campaign? Were you number one already?
Number three.
Number three. Okay.
Number 3.
Okay.
And eventually, of course, I was looking at it. That's why the ending of my campaign, it's only Mike. No more Rama.
Okay.
So that when they will sign,
Okay. Mike na lang.
Mike.
Okay.
kung
Okay.
ilay i-complete, Mike, niya, ingunan ko, Rama.
How important is it, sir, to have a grandfather as a politician, as a senator, the father of Cebu City? How important is it to be surrounded by politicians? How does that inform you as a politician? Was it an advantage or a disadvantage? Did they influence you now, sir? I mean, all of these things that you have done, is it also partially because of their influence?
Definitely. I've always been, if you look at it now, with this, I call this the Mayor Satellite Office.
Okay.
My office on the other building, on my table, there are all my family pictures.
So it has informed you and influenced
It
you
is
a lot.
very important that I should be reminded of the tenets, the inspirations, the aspiration, the so-called trust of Don Vicente Rama. Second, I have to be reminded of my father, who been a part of the governance, but focus on what he's doing.
Okay.
Number 3, my uncle, the governor, who never, during my time, never have heard any corruption. And then my another uncle was a fighting his uncle as a councilman. Another uncle who became constitutional delegate. He was a fight he fought, for a reason during that time.
So suffice it to say, all of these predecessors of yours from the Rama lineage has informed you
Yes.
and has influenced you to who you are now as mayor,
Definitely.
as a city mayor.
Even including my brother,
Yeah.
who became a governor
Yeah.
and a congressman.
Sir, let's talk about Cebu City politics, sir, because I think Cebu City, Cebu Island actually, is what they would call a bellwether city. They say that Cebu City, or Cebu Island, including the province, is like the armpit of the Philippines. If you want to know the temperature of the Philippines, stick your thermometer in Cebu's armpits and you will know who will win in the national elections. Of course, they all say that all politics is local, but this is a very special and interesting election because there are so many national candidates that are very powerful and also very divisive. And we are all aware of the history of Cebu, right? We've always been, since martial law, we've always been a, how would you call this? An anti-Marcos city, right? Cebu. In fact, I think next to EDSA, I think Cebu was like the second most important area in the revolution. In fact, I think when Cory Aquino's life was being threatened, he hid here in the Pink Sisters convent, right? And all of that stuff. And eventually, of course, we were able to install her as president of the republic and displaced the then mayor, President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. And if anything, Cory Aquino's job was just to install democracy. She was considered by many as the mother of democracy and all of that stuff. And people power was being emulated by a lot of countries all over the world. And of course, like all democracies, it's not perfect. So we had Fidel Ramos and all of these other presidents, ERAP, GMA, and so on and so forth. Of course, now President Duterte and all of that stuff. And now you have aligned yourself with the son of the former president. There was a revolution that happened that dethroned his father, that dislodged him from power after 21 years. What did you think of the revolution, sir? Was it a useless revolution? Was there a... just give me your thoughts on the revolution. What do you think of the EDSA Revolution?
I'll get back to your
Yeah.
premise.
Yeah.
Cebu, it being branded. Long time ago, from the time I have seen politics from a normal temperature to a level of really erupting when you talk about the thermometer. Cebu City has always been known as the opposition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Opposition,
Yeah.
but need not have to be referring to a certain administration in particular.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, remember, we are a family that has been around since 1960. My grandfather, from the history of the political landscape of Cebu, has been known even as the arch enemy in the museum, the soup of the late Don Sergio Osmeña. And during that time, Don Sergio Osmeña, if I'm not mistaken, was a nationalista. Then my grandfather was a democrata. And he was aligned with Manuel Quezon. And going into that, my grandfather has always been on the side because he was a newspaper man, an editor, and a publisher, which brings him to be the owner of the whole newspaper called Bagong Kusog in Bisaya, Progress in English, and in Spanish, La Nueva Fuerza. Now, I've been a part of this whole, what you enumerated, Gigi, from the Marcos, I remember 60 man. So I saw the Marcos regime. I can't remember before Marcos, but I was as a kid. And then after that, the glory that I have seen was also in the Marcos regime. And then there was the dark Aztecan, and so to speak. And we are a part of it. We are a part of the Marcos. We were a part of the struggle. We were a part of all those whose presidency.
Okay.
The presidency of Cory, we were a part. The presidency of Ramos, we were a part. The presidency of Arab, we were a part. Then eventually the presidency of GMA, then what I call Noy Noy.
Yeah.
Noy
yeah.
Noy Noy Aquino. That's why when you talk about where, me in particular, I don't want to be speaking for the whole clan. I have seen the evolution, the revolution, and I don't know how far we are on the conversion, on the transformation, and economic level right now. Now, for me, I know all those presidentials. I know all of them very well. Because
So how do you feel about the EDSA revolution? Was it a useless revolution?
I do not want, because I'm a part of it.
Okay.
I'm telling you, Jiggy, in all the demonstration
You were there.
upon the death of
Okay.
Ninoy, I was at Ayala.
Okay.
And I was also a part here in Cebu. When you
So
talk
you're
about,
part of the revolution.
I've been a part, I don't know if instrumental for the revolution. I've been there.
Okay.
Then I
So
was
you're
a-
part of the struggle.
I was part
Okay.
of the struggle. Come
Okay.
on. So I don't want to blame whose presidency. But now we're talking about forward looking.
Okay, so you have aligned yourself with
I have aligned myself
with BBM, right? With Bongbong Marcos,
with-
right?
If you look
Yeah,
at it,
yeah,
I am with the administration to start with.
Okay.
Because I became vice mayor under PDP Laban.
Okay.
So that alone brings me to the Duterte administration.
Yes, okay.
And then, of course, there was a choice. Should it be Bongbong or should it be
Sarah.
Sarah?
Yeah. Okay.
And should it be Bongo? Never in our administration, never in the party line that we can be discussing other president. And I'm a party man. I'm a party man. And since I'm a party man, then what was being at the beginning, the PDP Laban would want to have Bongo. At that point of time, so being a party man, though I am a friend of BBM,
Yeah.
pareho kami ni BBM, Jiggy,
Oh.
we were victim of, because 6 years ago, akong vice mayor won. All the councilmen, majority won. Ako ray na-discuss siya. I call myself Alcansi. So, now, it came to a point when I was hoping against hope. Kaya kini sila tulo. Because I have my own survey last October. Duterte, Marcos, Bongo.
Yeah.
Put all of this ilahang kinganlan of results. It's a formidable.
So it doesn't bother you one bit, sir.
No
You're
more.
supporting Bongbong
No
Marcos.
more,
Okay.
because I've looked forward.
Okay.
You've got to look forward. I even described the group. Okay. I jokingly,
Okay.
I said, the group of BBM Sara is a curing administration, healing administration, unifying administration. And that's what I've been telling. Why curing? Nalandaan nila, Marcos Duterte, MD. Doktor silang duha. So they have to cure.
Yeah.
But number two, when you cure, you end up healing.
Sir, just like yourself, sir, a Rama, the Marcoses also come from a long lineage of politicians, right? Starting from, of course, the late president, Ferdinand Marcos. Of course, his mother is also a congresswoman. His sister is also a senator. I think he was congressman and I think senator, and then he ran for vice president also. So, like you come from a lineage. He also comes from a lineage of politicians. I have a theory, sir. If you don't mind, humor me for just a little bit. My theory is this: to be able to predict how a person or a politician behaves, what you do is you look at his past, what he's done, what his grandparents, his parents has done, what he has done, while he was sitting as a politician, for example, yourself as mayor, you look at his track record, that will predict what he will do. So past plus present equals future. What do you think of that logic, sir?
It can be one, but not necessarily all.
Of course, yeah.
Because as I said, I've always been having the theory. Why, if and when, because I always tell, cast the first stone. Who among even those presidential that can claim immaculateness? Who can claim that they are the best?
Okay.
And for me, I look at Boom Boom and I look at Sarah. Two personalities from the presidential as their so-called, shall we say, forebear. No? Now, I don't want to talk ill of the other presidential. As they are talking against this two tandem, you cannot be telling that this other tandem are clean and perfect.
Yeah. No,
I
well,
don't think
nobody,
so.
well, nobody is perfect. Nobody is
Therefore,
clean.
I said,
Yeah.
that's why I look at the whole thing. Bongbong suffered because. Okay. For me, he won because I claim myself I won. I mean, statistically impossible that majority of my councilmen won. My vice mayor won, and I am the head of the party, and I lost. It is something unimaginable.
You affiliate with him in that regard.
That is not only that. Number two, I said redeeming. It is curing, it is healing, and it is redeeming and unifying. Okay, why redeeming? Of course, having both of them been healing against and whatever iniquities their forebears may be attached to. And I am pretty sure that these two, because they are curing, healing, redeeming, they will be unifying this country.
So you don't think, sir, that my logic is flawless? You don't think that the person's past, the person's present will predict the future of that particular person's behavior? You don't think that Bongbong Marcos will become his father's son? You don't think that what will happen to his father will also happen to him? You don't think that for one?
I'm a very optimistic person.
Okay.
And I have been in conversation with Bongbong for 6 years.
Okay.
6 years I've been intimately discussing,
Okay.
sharing on
So you
what
don't
we went through.
You don't think?
I have not seen arrogance in him.
Okay.
I have not. I have not seen the overbearing of anyone whose prominence, beyond imagination, he had accomplished. Number three, including the wife, Lisa, because 6 years of being interacting, he came over here when I was the mayor or what? He came over here when I was having the birthday of my son.
Okay.
In other words, he has been with me.
Okay.
I've been with him
So
here in Cebu and in Manila.
You know who he is and all of that stuff.
I have to speak
Okay.
because I have known
Okay.
with all this. In the same manner, Sarah. I have known Sarah.
Okay. But sir, see Sarah and in a way, Bongbong, although not directly, you said that the Cebu has always been opposition country, right? But this is not. They're not necessarily the opposition, right? In fact, they are the incumbent. So this is kind of a surprise, right? The incumbent is actually being supported by Cebu. Because
right.
there's a lot of supporters now for Bongbong Marcos and your candidacy as well.
You know why? You have to go back. After EDSA Revolution, where are we now? In culture, social, intellectual, political, and spiritual. this whole passage are very important as far as I'm concerned.
And we live in a totally different world. But then again, as
Now, you're talking about, I don't want to speak ill on other candidates.
Yeah,
Sige, actually.
yeah, let's not.
But I don't even want, I just look at it. Now, we need to have a tandem, you know. There are papers that I have read, actually, not to mention coming from home, you know. Seems that they are now declaring, concluding, that the presidency of Bongbong, the vice presidency perhaps of Sara, they now make their own conclusion. That's not fair.
No, they're actually leading, so they actually look like they're going to win if the elections were going to be held today.
So I would be appreciative because I stood for the winner. And I believe that they must do something. And I heard them in their speeches about where they want to be. And definitely,
You know, we live in a very strange world now, and in fact, democracy is under assault in many countries, right?
you are right.
Yeah, and as Winston Churchill once said, democracy is the worst possible kind of government, but it's the best. Or I'm sorry, democracy is the worst kind of government except for the rest. So this is the best that we've got, democracy. And the thing with democracy is it's very imperfect, and it's sometimes very slow, and all of that stuff now. And we have you know. There's so much chaos now going on in Europe with the war in Ukraine and all of that. So I think we are living in a totally and completely different world now. Plus with COVID-19 and all of that stuff. So I want to bring us back here to Cebu. Sir, what do you think is the biggest challenge of Cebu City moving forward? When you become mayor of Cebu City for the, how many times has it been? Third, fourth time already?
This is my third. Now I am an ascended mayor.
Yeah. So
When I get elected, that will be my first term.
what do you think is the biggest challenge for Mayor Mike Rama?
The biggest challenge of Mayor Mike Rama has been felt when we were confronted with COVID, number two, with Odette, and then complemented, aggravated by Agaton. And that is where you have to remember power, water, food security, and even now, the one that I am bringing a very clear position. I even issued a cease and desist order, and this is about garbage. This is about a very basic matter. And I would like to be focused first because this thing that I have, my I. There's a 21 grand salutes. And the 21 grand salute, when we came in, Rama Hontiveros. And there is also another platform when we get elected, which is 2022, Barog Cebu City. And looking at all of this, I would like to focus really about water. That's really, we had that, we really felt when we have Odette, what was the problem? Water. Number two, water cannot operate, there is no power. Number three, the communication, Chigi, was terrible.
Exactly.
Terrible.
We still are feeling the repercussions of that
And
until
even
now. Yeah, exactly.
Until now.
Yeah.
I mean, that has to be, I will aggressively bring back to our administration. That is the utility.
Sir, back to my point earlier, sir, about progress being slow and democracy being a slow crawl. You have been a city councillor since '92. You've been a politician. What do you think is the biggest change in Cebu, sir, from since the day you became city councillor to where you are now? What do you think is the biggest change in Cebu?
You look at, I don't want to be, wanting to be responsible because if you talk about SRP, that my predecessor, but I was a part of it. He always claimed that's the future of Cebu City. Be that as it may. But you look at the skyline. Somebody came in, good friend of mine, and that was Target on the Air, Rex, was so amazed was so titillated because the land, the so-called skyline, has tremendously from the time he was around. And about 10 years ago, he said, about 10 years ago, then he came back. He cannot imagine that we're like Makati, we're like Manila, as far as skyrockets or so-called infrastructure that are what I call the verticals. That really was an amazing thing as far as is concerned. Number two, if you look at how we are, because we're a city of culture, therefore people can come. We're a city of history. Tourism can be as much being as attractive. And number four, we are a very, what we call, dynamic people. Smiling, one, easily can have a conversation with anyone at any time. And that is a being very much potent asset. But most of all, we are spiritual. 500 years of Christianity, now 501, because 1 year after. So, that is...
Those are the biggest changes that you've seen since you were city councillor back in 1992.
Of course, the biggest changes. People are coming. Because when we get involved in Sinulog, I'm telling you, in 2000, there were only 150 people watching Sinulog. And then after, in 2016, when I had the debacle because of PCOS, 4 million people came over to Cebu. That is 4 million people helping our economy. Wow, economy.
Okay.
And that's it.
Sir, I have a hypothetical question for you. If your political career ended today, because we will never know, right? Like what happened to your predecessor, the late, great Mayor Labella. He died unceremoniously, and we're so sad about that. And we didn't see that coming. So, if your political career ended today, what do you think is your biggest and your proudest legacy of Mayor Mike Rama?
I don't even have to think about it because I don't want and I don't wish to end.
But if, what do you think?
I don't even want to say if, but maybe the most important question is, as of now.
As of now, yeah. What are you most proud of? How about that? That's a better question.
Yeah, that is the best question.
Okay.
It's a general thing.
Yeah.
Because making the lives of the poor to become better. And I can tell you what are those projects.
Okay.
30,000 of household from the poorest of the poor enjoyed Let There Be Light on a 3,000 pesos.
What's that, sir?
To connect, to have electricity. Number two, I call it the reblocking. When there's fire, I don't want the victims to be just spread anywhere in the sidewalk, in the gym. I want them to be in the school. With a reason. When you are victim of fire, you lost everything, even lost your morality. And you bring them more or less and approximate that there is a room, there is a CR, and they are going to be attended.
I just realized, sir, that you have been in politics for 30 years now, right?
In service.
In service.
27 in public service.
Public service, more or less, almost 3 decades now. What else is there to accomplish for Mayor
Okay, very
Mike
good
Rama?
question. But let me finish, Jiggy. Reblocking, you've seen it in Lorega. You've seen it in Tipadilla, at Gibilia, Ebilia. You've seen it in Careta. You've seen it in the north, Punta Princesa, and many Pasac Pardo. Used to be a troubled landscape. But when we came in, we put up a road, we put up light, and we bring that level something that they can be proud about. Now, legacy. The word is legacy. There are just too many things, Pasco sa Birama for 25 years. Buing Calvario for 26 years. 15 years for Carbon Pasco na. And all those many things under the advocacy of people privately driven governance.
Out of all those babies, sir, out of all those accomplishments, which one's your favorite?
I really love the reblocking.
Okay. What's the reblocking?
When they are victims of fire
Okay, right.
from ugliness in their situation,
Okay.
I make it better.
Okay.
And of course, the let there be light.
Okay.
When I go around and I go up, and they will cry because there was no light, and then because of me, because of our administration, and I intruded and invaded to make it simpler.
Yeah. So what is there? What
To
else is there to
accomplish.
accomplish for Mayor Mike Rama?
Okay.
You've been a councillor, you've been a city mayor,
There are
and all of
unfinished.
that stuff. Are you setting your heights up to a like higher position? What?
There are a lot of unfinished things.
Okay.
Had I had that continuous 3 years after 2016, which is going to be my third term, then I would have without assuming no pandemic and no so-called a cable car city. Having been everywhere, anywhere outside the Philippines, I even envision a city under 20 rotunda. Number 3, an integrated address or
So you don't have any plans to run for other positions as well,
Let's
sir?
not talk about running for other positions. We need to finish what the city of Cebu
Okay.
is deserving to become a globally competitive city, highly urbanized and smart, environmentally friendly, and disaster resilient.
Okay.
That has been my vision. And I cannot do that alone. It has to be under certain level of leadership, an insightful leadership, a grounded management, a participatory, consultative, and a convergence approach. All of this water dam has to be around. Our rivers has to be back during the time of my grandfather, when the city and the alleys and the creek, are waterways with bunkers and the means of transportation.
So there's a phenomenon now going on all over the world, sir, that is also being felt here in the Philippines, especially here in Cebu as well. Kanang medyo we're so divisive now, we're so divided as a people. Like for example, it's happening in the United States, People are very divided there. It's happening in Europe, Brexit. It's happening in France. It's happening everywhere. It's also happening here in the Philippines. Nga medyo ang mga family members, mag-away sila, kay kanilagi, balaban sila sa PIC, sa BBM, sa Lenny, sa whatever. It has caused fissures in society, in families. Mag-away na sila. How do you feel about that, sir? And what is your message to those kaning mag-away nga mga, let's say, mga salingan, mga pamilya nga dili pa sudlon si kuan kay kaning kuan siya, kaning suporta siya ni kandidato or and vice versa. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
Simple kay Jiggy, because I always have myself run by tenets, advocacy, philosophy, and ideology. I'm a pro-people. I even claim maybe I'm a SOCDEM, Socialist Democrats. Number 2, I believe in people privately driven governance. That the government is people and the people is government. Then I always push the so-called advocacy, the philosophy, which is barangayan, bayanihan, voluntarismo. Put all of this together. It will not be too difficult for me because I always keep on telling them, nganong kutampo yan ninyo ning gahom. Makabuang, makahilo. Palihog lang. Kining tanan lumalabay. And I will tell them, politics will pass. Friendship should last. Family ties and caste. Then I have to remind them, Wealth will not make you alive. But service above self, you will never die. Binisayo na to. Ang katigayunan, dili makapabuhi ninyo hangtod sa kahangturan. Dili. Apan ang serbisyo nga way pili kana pilit sa alimpatakan, ipoksi sa imong dughan. Ug bisag ikaw ay nay kinabuhi, buhi ka sa tanan nga imong giserbisyuhan nga way pili. Mag-unsa man kini, biblical man ha. What is there for a wealth that will bring you to have and you loses the soul, you loses the so-called your ability to go to heaven. So please, we only have one intention here on earth, and I'm always remembering it because it is there in Sinteris. I spend my heaven doing good things, doing good on earth. Beautiful statement from a saint. I mean, that is always guiding me. Remember, at the outset, I want to become a priest. And I bring my priesthood every time I pray, etc. So you're talking about divisiveness. You know, I offer to be the solution if my family will become divided. I offer. With the Rama, we've been taught by our forebears. Kita man mag-away ang mga igsoon ni Papa, pero hindi ko man, mamalik lang yapon sa old house. That is December. Mamalik yapon na sila. Magpabugnaw sila ang utok dito sa compound, inagtaw-taon, mamalik. Therefore, I saw it. Politics is not everything. And when you get elected, nga nung ko ito, mag-inumdum pa ka sa butar ni mo, imong tangtangon ng spalto, tangtangon ni mo sudyom, kuwao ni mo senior citizen, di ni mo tagaan sila sa cham. Come on. You must have to abide the philosophy and the leadership of, I call it, SSS Cup. Namang ko'y mga giya sa akong kinabuhi. SSS Cup, shepherding, servanthood, stewardship, custodian, overseership, partnership. Napagay ko'y mukada. Nobody is indispensable. Must, kanang gingalan, mukada, master one, know all, do all. By that's,
Okay.
I have been guided by that. Kanang divisiveness. That's crazy. You know, politics is not
So
everything.
you didn't have to say anything to your family members, sir, who are not
No, I
with
don't
you.
want to argue.
Wala kay isulti nila. They will just come back in the house,
Yes.
in the Rama house,
Yes.
after everything is done,
Yes.
after when the smoke
Yes.
clears and the dust
When
settles,
the dust
right?
settled, we always bring family should be a primordial thing.
Okay.
So maghuwat pa kay mga matay na mag-abot ang tanan.
Okay, so I think
Kapantay ka na.
I think that's a beautiful message, sir.
Yes,
I don't know
please.
I don't think if we can top that final message, but maybe you can give the Cebuanos your final message, sir. I think that was already a beautiful message, but if you have some more, please do so, sir. Go ahead.
You know, Jake, I am thankful that we had this, we call it conversation. But the most important thing, my track record will prove, if I fail you as a councillor, if I have failed you as a vice mayor, and I have failed you as a mayor, and I failed you as your vice mayor, and now I'm running for mayor, then don't vote for me. Don't. But if I touch your heart, and I know I have touched heart of the many, please, I am offering again, this time as an elected mayor. I guarantee, in my mind, in my heart, and in my soul, I will serve you to the best of my ability. So help me God. Thank you very much.
Sir, P.S. One last question, because I have always wanted to know about this, because I always host runs, right? I'm always surprised, but you're always there. Mga adlawon ka, mag-usay, mag-una pa ka nako. What is your secret, sir? Do you have a secret pill? Do you have a regimen? Can you tell me, where do you get your
Passion.
endless energy, sir?
Passion. I love that question.
Yeah.
I just had a basketball game. You did not see my Facebook.
Uh-huh.
Show it to you. I'm telling you.
So what's your secret, sir? Exercise lang?
Passion.
Nakakay diet, sir? Specific diet?
Number
Nakakay
one,
coffee? Unsa man?
let's see. Because of the COVID, I was walking for 1 whole year, almost 2 years, with Peter Mangkaw. That is how we became very close, the PM preventive medicine. That is what we will be discussing. Fighting, how do we deal, how do we fight the pandemic, how do we confront the issue of vaccination. We do the walk. I'm telling you, 2 years of walking. But before that, I play basketball.
Okay.
You know, I'm a three-pointer. That's why, yeah, I'm not joking.
You're like the Stephen Curry of Cebu, sir.
No, I made a record
Okay.
at the age of 60 years
Okay,
old.
okay,
I'm a varsity player.
okay,
I used to be an intramural player
okay,
in San Vega.
Okay.
And in my elementary.
okay.
That's why it hurt me, it saddened me when my good friend, our co-councillor, died. You know, Yayo.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, passion that I've always had ever since. And that passion comes from being a believer in God. I'm telling you, when 4:30 will come, kup na gusto ko asawa, matarjag ka, may automatic man ko.
So you wake up at 4:30 every morning, good sir?
I have to because by 4:30, I will be signing papers by.
Okay.
Signing papers by. Then 5:30,
Do you have a special diet?
my wife always take care. Not really special. I eat, but not much on diabetic man ko on rice. I don't eat much of rice. And I don't also take much of kanang sweets. Bye. You want my Facebook?
I will do that. In fact, we will
You can
incorporate
see-
that in this video.
You can see I was playing with Don Ontiveros.
Wow.
And I have number of assists. And I was able to do layuan nilang 3-point para lang ko kayo. And I did the 3 points. I did my, we call it, I know movements in terms of basketball. And then I do the Ramon
Fernandez.
Fernandez
El
run away.
Presidente.
Run away. Namin may ticket naman eh. Namin ko na nabay ka na. Newspaper. Iyang running. We compare the same step. I do myself. He was ahead of me. Magbuwang man ako 17 na tingin siya. But I was I'm 67. But at 65, I made 38 3 points record.
Wow.
And 2 points. So pila akong score. Jiggy!
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
God is good! All the time, God is good. When may buong ka, what am I getting? And my answer is simple. I love what I'm doing. I want to wake up early. Thank God. Lord, you make me alive. I can see.
Do you have like a sleeping hour nga late, sir? What time do you usually sleep?
No, actually now, because of politics. Politics ba? Nahin na kayo makatulog ka sa baby. But going towards the so-called finish line, you've got commitment.
But usually you sleep
Yes,
good
9 o'clock
good
sleep na
good
ko.
8 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
9 o'clock sleep na ko. Tungod na ni politics ba, I end up 6 hours, 7 hours, sometimes 5 hours. We've got to win. Winning is spending more hours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.